What would you do if 10 strangers banged on your door in the middle of a blizzard? Not friends, not family, not neighbors. Strangers. Faces you don't know. Shaking. Cold. Hungry. Desperate. Would you open the door? Or would you turn the lock and pretend you never heard it? Be honest. Because the answer says more about you than you think. Friday night. Just past 11 p.m. Rochester, New York. Lake effect snow fell so heavy you couldn't see the streetlights. Wind pushed drifts higher than the cars outside. The city was frozen in silence. But inside one small diner, a light was still burning. Her name was Lorraine Johnson, 72 years old, retired schoolteacher, widow. This diner was all she had left. 15 years earlier, she lost her husband in a storm like this. No one opened their door to help him, and Lorraine swore she would never let that happen again. That night, she thought she was closing early. But storms have a way of testing people. They have a way of bringing strangers to your door when you least expect it. And when the knock finally came, it wasn't just one desperate soul. It was 10. The door shook. 10 figures stood outside. Snow caked their coats. Faces red. Hands trembling. Signs rolled under their arms, wet from the storm. They weren't customers. They were protesters. Some young, some older, all desperate. One girl pressed her forehead against the glass. A nursing student from Syracuse. Shoes soaked through. Feet numb. Next to her, a man stared at the floor. Laid off from the GM plant in Buffalo. A face that had seen better days. Now it looked beaten down by more than snow. Behind him, a father clutched his teenage son. Both trembling. The boy's eyes wide with fear. The man's jaw tight, trying to be strong, but failing. And then, a Marine veteran. Limping. Torn coat. Boots split at the seams. Old scars meeting new frostbite. Lorraine's breath caught. Her heart raced. Her first thought was simple. Lock the door. Her second thought was louder. Don't you dare. One protester raised his hand. Knocked once more. Voice cracked through the storm. Ma'am, please. We just need warmth. We'll be gone by morning. Silence filled the diner. Only the wind howled. Lorraine gripped the counter. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. Lord, guide me. Because her choice in that moment would change everything that followed. Lorraine pulled the handle. The door swung wide. The storm shoved its way in. Snow swirled across the floor. The group stumbled inside, stamping their boots, shaking their coats. The diner filled with the sharp bite of cold air and heavy breathing. 10 strangers now stood in her diner. Not a word at first. Only shivers. Only the sound of dripping snow. 2 truckers sat at the counter. One leaned back, arms crossed. This ain't safe, lady, he muttered. The other let out a low laugh. You'll regret this. They'll clean you out. Lorraine turned. Her voice was steady, flat. If you were out there, you'd pray someone opened the door. So sit down. Or get out. The truckers went quiet. One shook his head. Neither moved. Lorraine motioned to the booths. Sit. Warm yourselves. The protesters hesitated, then slid into the seats, shoulders pressed close, steam rising from their coats. A young woman clutched her mug when Lorraine poured the first coffee. Her voice cracked. I'm a nursing student. Syracuse. My shoes are soaked through. I can't feel my toes. She blinked hard, trying not to cry. I didn't think we'd make it here. Next to her, a man rubbed his hands together, staring down. I worked at the GM plant in Buffalo. 20 years. Then layoffs. Just like that, gone. Now here I am, begging for coffee like I'm worthless. His jaw clenched. His eyes stayed on the mug. At the next booth, a boy's teeth chattered. 15. Maybe 16. His father pulled him close, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. Breathe, son. You're safe now. We're inside. The boy's eyes were wide. Dad, I thought we weren't going to make it. The father's voice broke. You made it because she opened the door. Lorraine poured another round. Her hands didn't pause. Plates of eggs. Toast. Whatever she had left in the kitchen. The Marine veteran sat apart, coat torn at the seams. Boots cracked. Hands scarred. He wrapped them around a steaming cup. He didn't drink at first. He just stared. Finally, his voice cut the silence. 15 years in the Corps. Thought I'd seen it all. But this hits different. Frozen out there. Limping like some stray. Never thought I'd end up begging. He lifted the cup slightly. But you opened the door. You didn't have to. So thank you. The diner went still. The nursing student wiped her nose. The boy leaned on his father's shoulder. The man from Buffalo lowered his head into his hands. From the counter, one trucker scoffed. You're all bleeding hearts. Lady, you're gonna wake up robbed. Lorraine turned, eyes sharp. I'd rather lose a plate or two than my soul. If kindness feels like foolishness to you, you're welcome to leave. Silence. The truckers didn't move again. The young woman spoke up, voice trembling. My mama always told me, no one owes you warmth. You have to earn it. But tonight, you gave it anyway. She clutched her mug tighter. And I don't know how to say thank you. Lorraine didn't answer. She just refilled her cup. The hiss of coffee pouring was the only sound. The father looked across the booth at Lorraine. His son leaned against him, half asleep now. You don't know us. You didn't ask. But you did more than feed us. You gave him hope. Lorraine's jaw tightened. Her eyes softened. She whispered under her breath. Hope is what keeps the storm from winning. The veteran raised his cup slightly in her direction. Amen to that. Now let me ask you, have you ever been shown kindness when you least deserved it or least expected it? Think about it. Because somebody out there needs to hear your story tonight. Drop it in the comments. But kindness doesn't erase the storm outside. And the night was far from over. By midnight, that little diner didn't feel like a business anymore. It felt like a fragile ark. An ark floating in an endless flood. Lorraine cracked more eggs, poured them onto the skillet. The sizzle filled the silence. She dropped strips of bacon, pulled soup from the back burner. It was thin, but warm. She carried plates to the tables, set them down one at a time. Nobody asked for anything. Nobody refused. They just reached for forks like they hadn't eaten in days. For a while, no one spoke. Only the clink of silverware, the sound of chewing. The storm outside howled louder than the voices inside. Then it started. Not loud. Not all at once. Just whispers. A young man pushed his plate away, his voice barely above a whisper. I haven't spoken to my mom in 3 years. The girl across from him looked up. Why not? She said I threw my life away. Said protesting was a waste. Said I embarrassed the family. So I left. Never went back. The girl's eyes softened. She's wrong. You stood for something. That matters. The young man shook his head. Then why do I feel like nothing? At the next booth, the laid-off worker let out a long breath. You think you've got regrets? Try telling your kids Santa might not come this year. One paycheck gone. One plant closed. Bills stacked higher than the snow outside. What do you tell them? The father of the boy leaned forward. You tell them you marched. You tell them you fought. You tell them somebody cared enough to open a door. His son stirred against his shoulder, eyes half open. Dad, are we going to be okay? The father kissed the top of his head. Tonight we are? Because she let us in. The Marine veteran spoke next. His voice gravelly. I gave 15 years to the Corps. Desert heat. Cold mountains. I buried brothers. Came home limping. They said, thank you for your service. Then they forgot me. He lifted the steaming mug. This cup right here? First thing in weeks that made me feel human. He set it down slow. I don't know how to repay that. Lorraine placed a fresh plate in front of him. You don't owe me anything. You're here. That's enough. The trucker at the counter snorted. Pathetic. All of you. Lady, you're wasting your kindness. They don't need sympathy. They need a kick in the ass. The other trucker shifted uncomfortably. Maybe ease up, Joe. No. She's feeding mouths that'll never give back. You'll see. By morning, you'll regret this. Lorraine turned slowly. Her voice calm, steady. I'd rather lose food than lose my soul. If that's foolish, then so be it. The trucker slammed his hand on the counter. You'll wake up robbed. Mark my words. He tossed down some bills, shoved the stool back hard. The door banged open. Cold air rushed in, then silence as it shut behind him. Everyone stared down at their plates. The nursing student whispered, my mom would have locked the door, said it wasn't our problem. But you didn't even think twice. Her eyes filled. You don't even know us. Lorraine poured more coffee. My husband once told me, storms don't ask for politics. They only ask if you're human. The diner grew still. The boy's father nodded slowly. He was a wise man. The veteran leaned forward, eyes damp. You just saved lives tonight. You know that, right? Lorraine shook her head. I just opened a door. The young man who hadn't spoken to his mom cleared his throat. Sometimes that's the only difference between life and death. A door. The storm roared louder outside, snow climbing higher against the windows. Inside, the diner felt like a confession booth. One voice after another, each one letting out what they carried. I haven't slept indoors in 2 weeks. I'm scared to go home. I don't know what waits for me there. I feel invisible, like nobody sees us. Each word hung heavy. Each story chipped away at the silence. Lorraine listened. She nodded. She set down more plates. Her eyes watered, but she didn't wipe them. The night dragged on. Coffee poured. Plates emptied. Stories poured out. Regret. Fear. Hope. All of it spilled into that little diner. And all the while, the storm outside never let up. The diner rattled with every gust. Snow buried the steps deeper. The town lay frozen. Lorraine thought the night would end quietly. She thought she had done her part. But the storm wasn't the only thing building. The snow slowed with the sunrise. The diner was quiet now. Plates cleared. Cups empty. The storm had passed, but something heavier sat in the air. Lorraine sat at the counter, hands resting on the wood. She stared at nothing. Her chest ached with questions. Would she have enough food tomorrow? Would the town forgive her? Would they whisper behind her back? She opened her doors to protesters. She fed them when no one else would. Her jaw tightened. She thought of her husband. That night long ago. The storm that swallowed him whole. How the neighbors locked their doors. How no one stepped outside. Her voice, soft. Never again. Not if I'm alive. The room was still until the nursing student spoke. Her voice cracked. Ma'am, you do realize some folks won't like what you did. Lorraine turned her head slowly. I know. The student stared into her empty mug. My mom would call you reckless. She'd say protesters don't deserve help. Lorraine answered, steady. Storms don't check your ID. They don't care if you're right or wrong. They just kill whoever's left in the cold. The laid-off worker leaned forward, elbows on his knees. People in Buffalo, they'll never understand this. They're hard. Closed off. When I lost the plant job, not one neighbor knocked to check on me. Not one. His eyes watered. But tonight you did. The father rubbed his son's shoulders. He's right. Most folks don't care until it's their storm. Then suddenly, they remember what it feels like to beg. The Marine veteran cleared his throat. They'll call you weak. They'll say you caved. But I know strength when I see it. Ma'am, this. He tapped the counter. This is stronger than any weapon I carried. Lorraine shook her head slowly. It isn't strength. It's duty. My husband froze because no one answered a door. I swore that day if I ever had the chance, I'd answer. The young man who hadn't spoken to his mother shifted in his seat. His voice trembled. You'll pay for this, ma'am. They'll shame you. They'll say you chose the wrong side. Lorraine looked at him. I didn't choose sides. I chose life. The boy stirred awake beside his father. His voice small. Did she really save us, Dad? His father kissed the top of his head. She did, son. She did. The trucker who stayed at the counter finally spoke. His tone softer now. You're braver than me. I wouldn't have opened that door. Not in this town. Not at this hour. He rubbed his face. Maybe that's the problem. The nursing student leaned forward. My professors say compassion is medicine. But I've never seen it like this. This, what you did, it's more than medicine. It's survival. Lorraine's eyes glistened. She poured more coffee without speaking. Set mugs in front of each of them. Her silence said more than her words. The laid-off worker lifted his mug. Folks will call you crazy. But me? I'll call you the reason I made it through tonight. The veteran raised his cup too. And I'll second that. For a moment, everyone drank in quiet. Each sip heavy with gratitude. But Lorraine's thoughts kept circling. Would the kindness of one night ruin her tomorrow? Would she be remembered as a fool? Would her neighbors turn cold? She pressed her palms together. If I go down for kindness, I'll go down proud. She braced herself for the backlash. But what she got instead left her trembling. The storm broke at dawn. The wind slowed. The sky glowed pale gray. Snow lay thick across the street. The diner stood silent. Inside, Lorraine stood by the door. Her hand rested on the lock. Her chest felt tight. Her breath shallow. She didn't know what waited outside. The key turned. The latch clicked. The door creaked open. Lorraine looked up and froze. The parking lot was full. The sidewalk. The street, packed with people. Not 10, not 20, but hundreds. 200 faces stood in the snow. Some she knew, most she didn't, all staring back at her. Her hand gripped the doorframe. Her voice whispered, "Dear Lord." At the front, the protesters from last night stood together, their coats still worn, their eyes brighter. Behind them came families from down the block, mothers holding children, fathers carrying bags of food, teenagers clutching blankets, and scattered through the crowd, familiar faces. Old students of hers, kids she once taught fractions and spelling, now grown, now holding gifts in their hands. Strangers too, neighbors she'd never met, people from across town, all carrying something. Casseroles, bread, thermoses of steaming coffee. A woman stepped forward first, middle-aged, eyes red. A small boy held her hand. She spoke through tears. "Thank you. You saved my son." The boy tugged her sleeve. "She gave me food, Mama. She kept me warm." Lorraine covered her mouth. Words caught in her throat. Then another voice. A man with a heavy coat. He held a bag of groceries. "You didn't just help them. You helped us. You reminded us who we're supposed to be." A cheer rose from the crowd. Not loud, not wild, but strong. The Marine veteran pushed forward. His limp heavy, but his voice clear. "She saved us all. Don't you forget it." The crowd shouted back. "She did." Another young man came forward, gloves soaked. He set down 2 pots of soup. "You fed my friend last night. Now we feed you." Lorraine shook her head, tears falling. "You don't owe me anything." The laid-off worker raised his voice. "We do. Because you gave us dignity when nobody else would. This whole town owes you." A woman yelled from the side. "You showed us what it means to be human." A teenager lifted a protest sign. Yesterday it read, "Justice now." This morning, words scribbled across the cardboard. "Thank you, Miss Johnson." Lorraine's body shook. Her voice barely carried. "This can't be real." The father of the boy stepped forward, his son by his side. "People said you were reckless. I call it courage. You didn't just save us. You gave him hope." The boy pulled at his father's coat. "Dad, can I hug her?" The father nodded. The boy ran forward, arms wide. Lorraine knelt low. He wrapped around her neck. Her tears ran into his hair. Behind him, voices rose again, one by one. "Thank you. You saved my brother. You gave us shelter. You gave us warmth. We'll never forget this." But not every voice was soft. From the back, a man shouted, "You'll regret this, Lorraine. You let them in, you'll pay for it." The crowd turned. Murmurs grew. Another man shouted back, "She saved lives. Show some respect." Voices clashed, anger mixed with gratitude. The crowd split for a moment. The veteran raised his hand. "Enough. This woman stood alone last night. She doesn't deserve your fighting. She deserves your thanks." Silence fell again. A woman stepped forward, an old student of Lorraine's. Her voice cracked. "You once told me in class, do the right thing even when no one claps. Well, Miss Johnson, today we're clapping." The crowd roared. Clapping, cheering. Shouts of, "Thank you, Miss Johnson," echoed down the street. Lorraine pressed her hand against her chest. Her voice trembled. "I only opened a door." But the people shook their heads. The laid-off worker shouted, "You opened more than that." The nursing student cried out, "You opened our hearts." The father said, "You opened our future." And in that frozen morning silence, Lorraine realized she hadn't just opened a door. She had opened something bigger. The diner was full again, but it didn't feel the same. Last night it was fear. Last night it was silence. Now it was voices. Now it was gratitude. They crowded around her. Not pushing, not demanding, just reaching, hands stretched toward hers, each one wanting to touch the woman who had opened a door. The nursing student hugged her first. Tears streaked her cheeks. "You gave me back faith," she whispered. "After everything, I didn't believe people cared anymore. Now I know they do." The laid-off worker stepped up next. His voice cracked. "You didn't just feed me. You fed my pride. And that's something no paycheck ever gave me." The father gripped her hand. Both his palms swallowed hers. "You saved us," he said firmly. His son tugged at her sleeve. "You saved my dad too." Lorraine shook her head through her tears. "No, I just did what someone should have done long ago." The Marine veteran stepped forward. His limp heavy, but his eyes clear. Last night, I thought I was invisible. 15 years serving. Came home and felt like a ghost. But you saw me, and that's worth more than medals. Lorraine placed her hand over his. You've carried enough. Let someone carry you now. A woman from the crowd lifted her daughter higher. The little girl's mitten pointed straight at Lorraine. Mama, that's the lady with the light. The mother's eyes filled. My child saw hope in you when the rest of us only saw risk. And now she knows what courage looks like. The trucker who had stayed behind shuffled forward. He rubbed the back of his neck. I judged you. I judged them. I called it stupid. But I was wrong. I've been hardened by the road. Hardened by people. And you softened me tonight. That's not weakness. That's power. Lorraine's body shook. Her tears wouldn't stop. But her voice stayed steady. You call me strong. But all I did was open a door. A man in the back raised his hand. Loud enough for all to hear. She didn't just open a door. She opened us. Every one of us. Voices answered. Yes. She's right. She opened more than a door. The young man who hadn't spoken to his mom wiped his face. When I see her again, I'll tell her about you. I'll tell her how a stranger treated me better than family. And maybe she'll understand. The nursing student's voice rose again. Don't let anyone call this weakness. This was strength. Stronger than marching. Stronger than shouting. The crowd echoed her. Yes. She's right. This is strength. The veteran raised his cup. To Miss Johnson. For reminding us what it means to be human. Cups lifted across the room. Mugs of coffee. Thermoses of soup. Hands shaking but lifted high. Lorraine pressed her hand to her chest. Her tears soaked into her sleeve. If you think kindness like this doesn't matter anymore. She paused. Her voice trembled, then steadied. You're wrong. The room went quiet. Not one chair moved. Not one voice broke the silence. And in that moment, they all knew. This wasn't just a night in a storm. This was judgment. This was the verdict. A verdict on what it means to be human. In the weeks that followed, Lorraine's life changed. Not loudly. Not with headlines. Quietly. People came. Some for food. Some just to sit. Some just to see her. One morning, a man walked in carrying a toolbox. I don't need coffee, he said. I just came to fix that back step for you. No charge. Another day, a woman came with her daughter. The girl held flowers. She wanted to thank you in person. She said she's not scared of storms anymore. Because she remembers your light. Lorraine would nod. She would smile soft. She would serve them anyway. The diner was no longer just a place to eat. It became a place to breathe. To confess. To feel safe. One Sunday, Lorraine stood in a small classroom. Children sat in front of her. Bibles open. Eyes watching. She spoke clear. Kindness isn't charity. It's survival. We are all one storm away from needing a stranger's hand. A boy in the back raised his hand. Miss Johnson, what if the stranger is mean? Lorraine smiled faintly. Then you pray for courage. Because sometimes the meanest people need the door open most. The class was quiet. Her words sank deep. Later, an old student visited her diner. He sat at the counter. Miss Johnson, you used to tell me to always do the right thing. Even when no one was looking. Well, I saw you do it. And I'll never forget. Lorraine poured his coffee. Her answer simple. The right thing doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be done. The laid-off worker stopped by weeks later. He carried a small bag of groceries. Found a new job, he said. First paycheck went to my kids. Second one went here. Because you gave me hope when I had none. The nursing student returned too. She wore scrubs now. Still tired. Still strong. She hugged Lorraine long. You reminded me why I chose nursing. Because kindness heals more than medicine. And the veteran came back. He stood straighter. Still scarred. Still limping. But alive with purpose. I joined a group, he said. Helping other vets off the street. Because if you could carry us through one night, I can carry them through many. Lorraine's eyes filled. Her voice low. That's the legacy. Not me. You. One evening, a father returned with his boy. The child looked older already. He ran to Lorraine, hugged her waist. Your family now, he said. You always will be. Lorraine pressed her hand to his head. Her whisper carried. The storm will come for all of us. The only question is, will you open the door? Silence filled the diner. Everyone knew those words would never fade. Now let me speak to you. Yes, you listening to this story. If you close this video without sharing it, it's like closing your own door in someone's storm. Don't do that. Don't shut the light. Don't walk away. Share this story. Comment. Subscribe. Because the next storm could be yours. And on that night, you'll pray somebody leaves their light on.